beef on.
Do
your beef.
My beef is Palythoa.
Oh yeah.
You know, Palythoa can be really bad. And so why I have this beef this week is because we've talked about this several times with people who have been exposed to Palytoxin and gotten really sick. And we have a friend who got really sick. I'm not going to say their name. It doesn't even matter. This person knows what they're doing. They took all the possible precautions that they could, like full on face mask and, you know, a respirator and gloves and aprons and the whole thing. They were, you know, ridding a tank of a Palythoa infestation, right? And, you know, putting them in plastic. And it seems like what happened was that they put the bag in the trash can, and when they pushed it down, it huffed. You know how a bag will, you know, all the air huffs out of it? And that's how they were exposed. They got really fucking sick. They went to the hospital and they were really fucking sick. And it would have been so much worse because they're landlocked and they were saying this is Palythoa poisoning. And they were not being taken seriously because people are like, fuck you. What are you talking about? It just so happened this person had a friend who worked in that hospital who knew that they knew what they were talking about this poison, and came up and talked to the people and went, no, this person knows what they're talking about. You need to look into what they're saying. You know, and it was absolutely Palythoa poisoning. And it was bad. We could have lost a friend because people are keeping Palythoas and then ask our friend to take them out of their tank for them. And they did everything right, except for one thing at the end. And we've got people in our fucking hobby who are giving other people advice like, put the rock with Palythoa in a pot and boil it. Serious advice people are giving. Put it in the oven and bake it. Serious advice. You leave it out in the backyard in the sun. With caveats, that's terrible advice. But, you know, right? Because if your dog goes back there or your little kid goes back there and fucking rubs their hands on fucking dying Palythoa and then puts their finger in their eye, your dog doesn't have a finger. Your dog would just eat the Palythoa. Then you got dead people. So look, we know Palythoa is really bad, right? Zoanthid's not as bad. We know you can die from Palythoa. We know it. Stop keeping fucking Palythoa. That's my beef. But I've got a venomous lizard right here. I've got a Mexican beaded lizard, right? Because I'm a good person, because Gila monsters are illegal in California, so I'm not going to do it. But I got a Mexican beaded lizard. I had a Gila monster that I didn't know. This was like 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I didn't realize they were illegal in California when I got it. But as soon as we had a kid, that thing was gone. It was in a locked tank. But kids are smart and shit happens. I'm not taking that risk. I'm not fucking having Palythoa in my house anymore either. And this Mexican beaded lizard is locked up. You have to undo a key to get in there and get bit. And it's really hard to get bit. So as venomous stuff goes, that's okay to, you know, that's on the easy side, on the safer side. Palythoa, man, I've got some still, you know, it's not the grandest, it's just that fucking brown shit that I'm killing off as I can. But every time I pull a rock out, it's like I could be fucked.
I know. I mean, so I've been sick 3 times with it, and it's all from the same tank. And it sucks though. Like I had some good headway with using F-Aptasia, but it's like there's just so much of it, and I would do like a patch like that big at a time. And then like invariably a story of one of my friends getting real sick would come out, and I'd just be like, nah, I'm not even fucking with it. And then the shit grows back where you killed it. And it's just so goddamn frustrating.
If you want to get rid of them underwater like that, it would be the last thing I would do on the tank, right? Spray them down, pumps are off, cover them with F-Aptasia, wait your half an hour, flip everything back on, you're done for the next.
Walk away.
You're out of there. The other thing you could do, but you have to keep up on it, right? Because you have to stay ahead of them. The other thing I would do is, because it's a rock you can't get rid of, is I would smother them with epoxy putty. I would you know, and yeah, no, this is going to be ugly for 2 months.
Yeah.
Sorry, but we have to get rid of this coral.
Here's what makes me wonder, Richard. If you smother them and then you've got a skimmer on the system as they die and whatnot, is the skimmer like aerosolizing palytoxin?
Certainly could happen that way.
Like, I know,
that's not a terrible point, because my skimmer is under the house. So if I've done that, probably nothing bad's going to happen to me unless I go under the house and, you know, smoke my skimmer smoker.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know what the answer is. I think the better answer is stop trading and selling and keeping and giving away and having Palythoa in your tanks.
This is the argument of the manufacturers of plastic and putting the onus on the end users to recycle your plastic, because really, like, it makes me wonder, like, does there need to be, as every day there is new hobbyists, is every day that Palythoa will be sold just because it makes someone money. And
Yes.
certainly information from Reef Beef does not disseminate through the whole
It's not
world.
shaking the pillars of the hobby.
Yes.
Um,
but almost like it should be beseeched to the powers that be, like, quit collecting these. And people are like, oh, but people like them and it makes us money. You know, it's going to be.
First of all, there's no powers that be. So
Yeah, that's true.
we're the Wild West, essentially.
Yeah.
And the more I've been thinking about this, the more I'm in favor of regulation.
Mhm.
I'm just in favor of it for a bunch of stuff, because we're not going to do it ourselves, right? It's if you can make a buck, people are going to try to make a buck. And I get that. But things like Palythoa, they shouldn't be impossible to get, but you should need to apply to get them, right?
They can hurt people.
You want a thing that could kill people. You should show some reason why you should have. And there's a billion other corals. You don't need a goddamn Palythoa.
And the trickier thing is, like, your Mexican beaded lizard. It is easy to sequester that and have a protocol for how you clean his cage, handle him, feed him, blah, blah, blah. Where Palytoxin is a bit more mysterious, because the 3 times that I got sick were sort of like 3 different ways, because I certainly didn't do the same thing 3 times in a row. I did something different. And all 3 times, me personally, it started with me getting a metallic taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
So the second and third time I was like, fuck. And the third time, you know, as soon as I had that, I was like, fuck. And I cleaned everything off and I was like, I'm done. Go home and get sick as shit for one night. Like I had the flu.
Yeah. My Mexican beaded lizard is not a spitting cobra.
Yeah.
You know, the venom is contained.
Yeah.
Palythoa, anything could happen, right?
Yeah,
A guy's dog. Did the dog die? I don't remember the story.
Well, Sanjay threw one in his backyard, and what was the story? It was like 2-3 months old, dried up. So he's like, certainly and he touched it, and I think he got sick or something.
Yeah, let's confirm that. I don't know that story, but it could be. But you know, if you're gonna get rid of it, bleach it, put it in bleach.
I have one story of what I did. The only time I really did this successfully, during 2 years ago when Texas had that big ice storm that we aren't used to. It did nuke a tank that I do that's 8 foot long, 1 foot tall, 1 foot wide. It just blew it off its wheels. Tank was dead, just milk colored stuff in there. And I knew that she had Pally all across the back of her tank. And I was like, dude, what do I do? And at the time I consulted with you and saw something also on the internet about bleach, that bleach would somehow chemically like tear apart Palytoxin. And I even took a video and put it on Facebook of showing me glug, 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 a whole container of bleach in there, and told the lady to close the door. Don't go in there for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, we'll just see. And it was crazy. It was just bleach to hell. But that was the only time I've ever done. And that was nuking it from space.
Yeah. And, you know, lots of times it's not a problem. You know, I had Palythoa grandis in my tank for a long time. We had it at the academy for a long time. We dove in those tanks. No one got sick. But it's just not worth the risk. If I mean, maybe that's the theme for today's show. You know, I'd like people to be taking informed chances rather than random chances,
Yeah.
you know?
But again, people don't know what they don't know. So then you get a new
that's why-
hobbyist into a store. What's that thing? Yeah, you can have that. Boom, bought it.
That's why
Finds out later.
I'm all for regulation. You know, the same with plastics. I think we talked about this before. The airport at SFO, no plastic. There's no plastic in there. No plastic drinks, no plastic bags. It's just not there. And you know what? There's other shit, and you just buy that. It's not like I needed to have plastics or my life is worse. You know, you just don't have it. And
see, but that's what's so,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's just what's so silly is because then you'll have, not like I'm worried about it, but I'm seeing some people will get offended. Oh, this place is woke. They don't have plastic bottles. It's like, unless we put our foot down and wean ourselves off of this shit, it ain't going to happen.
Dude, I just saw some video of people talking about my freedoms when seatbelts became regulated.
That was my video.
Was that you put that up? Yeah. When seatbelts, and people don't remember this, I remember this.
I do too.
When seatbelts became a thing, people lost their shit.
People were mad.
When motorcycle helmets became a thing, people lost their shit. And it's like, you know what?
With seatbelts, it's weird because seatbelts, we don't think about it. I mean, for most of us, it's just the first thing we do when we get in a car.
Right.
Like I don't put my seatbelt on and say, God damn it, we're almost communist. Like that's insane.
But that's what was going on.
Yeah.
People were like,
in the video I showed, that's what the lady said. It was sort of like but it was like a redneck lady getting interviewed in her car. And she was saying, you know, they, at the beginning video, did you see that where the guy said, man, a guy works 12 to 14 hours a day. And, you know, maybe, you know, you get in your car to go home. You can't even have, you know, 1 to 2 beers.
Yeah. So your video wasn't about seatbelts. Your video was about drinking and driving. Right. So yeah. I hadn't even gotten back to drinking and driving, which came before seatbelts. My cousin was killed by a drunk driver, and his sister became huge in Mothers Against Drunk Driving, right? And so did his mom. But, you know, and people were like, well, I should be able to drink and drive. It's like, fuck you.
No.
Fuck you. And now people are kind of like, yeah, no, you're an asshole if you drink and drive. Whereas 40 years ago, people were like, my freedoms.
Yeah.
Like, other people's freedoms matter too. So,
I mean, do you really fucking need Palythoa? You don't. It's not that important.
So I'm a big fan of I used to say we better come up with our own standards and practices before someone does it for us and we're not going to like it. I have very little hope that we're going to police ourselves.
If you're watching this, please understand that, you know, that was always the trick as someone, well, I don't understand the difference between a zoanthid and a Palythoa. I mean, I remember like the worst Palythoas were ones that had common skin and the polyps would come out of it, whereas zoanthids are like singular. But that's not even necessarily the case, because I'll even tell you the exact type of Palythoa that made me sick 3 times. It's called Captain Jerk Palythoa. Those
are the light green ones.
Yeah, they have like a weird golden green in the center and it comes out. They're not even that pretty. I don't know why. I wish I could just go back in time and when I put that single solitary polyp in a tank and just not do that. And the funny thing, it seems like the uglier they are, it seems like there's more Palytoxin. And I don't know that for a fact, but it just seems that way.
It's, you know, people like weird shit, but why? I don't think it makes any sense for a new hobbyist to be responsible for choosing which animal is going to kill them or not based on knowledge that they don't have.
And that is where, and I too, like normally you talk about like regulation or industry, and like, ugh. But on Palythoa, this is my statement is I wish someone, some entity, something in our industry would quit importing Palythoa.
Yeah. And like I say, if you want Palythoa, okay, there should be a mechanism for you to get Palythoa. There should be a mechanism for people to get Queensland groupers, right? There should be a mechanism to get a panther grouper. If somebody has a real, reason and has, if Alex G builds a 10,000 gallon tank and because he loves a Queensland grouper, I got no problem with that. But they shouldn't be there for impulse buy in stores. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like a tiger.
Do you know that this is a fact? You know that there's more tigers in Texas than there is in Asia?
I do know that.
Sorry, people.
That's awesome.
It's good if people, again, just like you and I talk about, it's good if it's people who honestly love and care for the tigers and are meeting all their requirements. And if there's, I don't know that they need to be AZA licensed or anything like that, but
what do tigers dream of when they have a little tiger snooze?
They dream of living in Texas.
I'm not going to do the whole song from The Hangover.